This is Men's Radio Station, where men really talk, and that was why we set it up. My next guest has already disappointed me. I'm going to be quite frank. I'm going to be upfront about it because, well, the last guest came in an immaculate suit, and frankly, you've made absolutely no effort.
I've made a huge effort. This is my favourite Batman T-shirt. What are you talking about?
I know. He's wearing a sort of hipster check shirt. I wear exactly the same shirts, but I'm not brave enough to go out in a Batman T-shirt, although I'm suspecting you might get mugged by James on your way out because he's looking at that and thinking, I want that T-shirt. My special guest is Kenny D'Cruz. Kenny, welcome.
Thank you. I'm now Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz.
I was told not to do the Mammarella part.
That's because I didn't think you could pronounce it.
Well, I pronounced it when I did the intro.
I know. I heard you did very well.
Yeah, thank you very
I
much.
got married. How could I not double them up?
Well, no, okay, so, take two, still rolling, everybody. Right, so my special guest is Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz.
Thank you.
See, I just segued into that, it was like seamless. The Man Whisperer. Just seeing that got me. Like, if you're doing a Hollywood pitch, you go, give me the pitch, and you go, they're twins, and one's Danny DeVito and one's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, I'm in. So this is, as soon as I hear the phrase, the Man Whisperer, Kenny, I'm hooked. Tell me. What?
I didn't have the audacity or the imagination to come up with that. Newsweek contacted me, very grown-up magazine.
Just want to drop that into the conversation. Sorry.
And
so wasn't the Ham and High, by the way.
I once had a column in the Ham and High, but that's
You're
a different story.
joking me, did you? All right, pick another one. Jay, Dalton's Weekly. Here we go. I don't know.
So, yeah, right. Newsweek said, we are doing a cover story article on men, mental health and suicide. Are you interested? So great. Sure, I'm interested.
Well, yeah.
So the guy came around. He asked lots of questions, came to a men's group, did this, that and the other. He was great. So the magazine came out, cover story. I had my little mention. Next thing I know, there's a book out. They write a chapter about me, and they call me the Man Whisperer. Like, how cool is that?
Beyond cool. beyond ultra cool, quite frankly. Fantastic.
And good. It is all about, so I've got a cheap ass, am I allowed to say the A word? Catchphrase.
You can't say Arsenal in here because as a Tottenham fan there'd be a problem. That is the only football reference you will ever hear on this station. But you can say arse.
Well, it's man up and talk about it. And I find that so often men would rather do anything than talk about what's going on. Talk about what's really going on. It's easy to have even like victim stories, sob stories, hero stories, whatever. Yeah. But what men feel, what men fear, what men fantasize about, what's going on, really going on in a man's life, that has not been easy for so many men. And sadly, men would rather self-medicate, isolate, God knows what. Men would rather die than die of embarrassment. And it's shocking.
It's so interesting you say this, because when I created the Espresso Bar, which is my Facebook group, which kind of was one of the things along with Women's Radio Station that gave the genesis to Men's Radio Station, I wouldn't just add people at all. I did it. It's all by invitation. All has to be vetted. And then I said to the sort of nearly 2,000 people we have in the group, which is pretty good considering I've done, I haven't really pushed it. Please recommend it to your friends. And you have just used the word that came back to me, Russ. We love the group, and we're really looking forward to Men's Radio Station, but we would be embarrassed to admit to our friends that we were doing this because it looks like a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And that and you have just gone straight in there, hit the nail on the head.
Meanwhile, the way it seems to be turning around, and maybe this is only in my world, but the way that it's turning around is people are realizing that vulnerability is power. I've been running men's groups for 16 years now. Yeah. I run about a dozen a month, including training people to run their own groups. So it's happening all over the country, all over the world. On the website, they can download ground rules, checking around videos on how to do it, and
give
just
us the website because people are going, where is it? Where have I found what?
Mensgroups.co.uk.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all there, and men much as, the media say men don't talk, men don't know how to talk, blah, blah, men are dying to talk, or men are living after talking. It's making such a huge difference in so many men's lives. And very often what I found out is the reason a lot of men don't talk or don't know how to talk is generally there isn't space for anyone to listen to them, or to not save them, or laugh at them, or suppress it, or second guess what they're going to say, and so it goes on. And the Men Facilitate training is all about how to listen, how to be in a space of discomfort, even of silence, of pain, even of joy, how to be in that space rather than continue the babble or abandon. And I would say the two greatest fears that men generally have are a fear of abandonment and a fear of humiliation.
It's just reinforcing, and I'm you're the professional, and I'm totally an amateur, as I always say. I'm just the facilitator, and that was when Howard and I were having our meetings. Howard Jameson, my co-founder with me on this project, and it was like, where can guys go? Where can they go that they will feel okay to open up and get the advice that they're looking for without feeling not manly? I don't know what the right phrase would be, Kenny.
Do you know, I'm not sure even whether it's manly or not. I think it's about being authentic. It's about getting real. It's about having the space to be true. And a lot of the men, some of the men who come to the men's groups have never had male friends. Some of the men have got loads of male friends and they're popular and they do sports and everything else, but they haven't got space for them. They need to be competitive, or drink, or just talk rubbish, basically. There isn't a real space for who they are, not just to show up, but also to grow, to be met, to be questioned, to have the best of them explored and brought out, and to grow.
When I was doing the introduction, this being the very first broadcast we've ever done here, I was saying that women, I hate to talk in generalizations, Kenny, but bear with me, is that women will go out and have a coffee or something and somehow manage to get to the nub of what the problem is. They're much more open. Whereas guys, often, to use a total cliche, they go to the pub or whatever, they're just going to talk about, how the team's doing, and just they won't talk the way that women would talk.
Yeah. Do you know, I kind of agree, and rather than men and women, I'd say it's very much about the masculine and the feminine. And I'd say that's one distinction. And to come to a men's group, you don't necessarily need to be masculine or even feminine. It's more about who do I not need to be anymore, so there's space for me to show up and grow and change and find out who I am.
So if you walk me through, if there is such a thing, as your men's group. So I rock up, say, our listeners rock up. What?
Before starting, there are ground rules, 12 very simple ground rules. Confidentiality is obviously one, non-violence, physical, verbal, etc. And then there are two of my favourites. One is you can say pass at any time, so there is no pressure. And the other one is play big enough to break the rules. So it's not about play small and get it right to be popular. It's play big and get some feedback, because everyone's on the same side. So it's collaborative, and it's a place where men can learn from other men's experiences, not just tall tales of how wonderful and what a hero. It's even, this is how I failed, and you don't need to fail this way. This is how I succeeded, or this is how I learned. So people can learn from each other. It's brilliant.
Is it? I don't know what I'm trying to think. Is it like a bit like group therapy, or nothing like group therapy?
Not really. I mean, I guess there's
there's a group and you're talking. Okay, well done, Russell. Well done.
There's a therapy.
Am I on fire today?
Can't deny that it's not therapeutic. But I'm not a therapist. Therapists do come to groups, and the therapists learn to run men's groups. But it's not all about therapy. It's also about hanging out. It's also about laughing. It's also about sharing the good, bad, and the ugly. Mm. So whatever the men bring to that particular group.
So is there a facilitator? Do you facilitate these things? Or do people just come in and start having a cup of coffee and chatting? I'm not being facile with that. I'm
No.
generally interested in the whole, what I always term it as the mechanics of it.
Yeah. I facilitate mine, but I've trained a lot of people to facilitate, and people run the groups all over the country, all over the world now.
Right.
So after the ground rules, the way that I do it, there's chairs in a circle.
Right.
We start with 2 minutes silence, basically just to stop the babble in the head and to get present rather than think about
Do you know what would happen to me?
What?
I'd start giggling. If I'm
Do you know,
told,
no one's done that
Kenny,
yet.
if I'm told, the worse the situation, my nervous reaction, and you will have all sorts of research on this, is I start to giggle, and I can't help it. And people who know me very well, if I do a certain laugh, that is the time to leave, because that is the time when I'm really about to absolutely explode. It's like uncontrollably. But if you said to me, "You've got to be silent," I'll be sitting there.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be.
I'd
like to do it, but I'm just useless at it.
But then you couldn't possibly get it wrong. If you're going to giggle, you giggle. I had one guy.
But then I'd feel, in all seriousness, that if I went to your group, I'm going, look, I'm here. I'd like to make a good impression, probably the first mistake. But all right, I'm not a people pleaser because I don't really give it. But anyway, but I think I'd want to show respect to you. So say you've invited me to the group, and I'm there, and then I would feel I'm being disrespectful to you. I wouldn't be embarrassed about myself, but I would be thinking, oh, Kenny's going to think I'm a complete arse.
Exactly.
He's brought me in here, and now I'm giggling like I'm 12.
And this is where it starts.
Yeah.
What do people think of me? What will people think? Am I being approved of? Am I being liked? Am I being a rebel, etc., etc.?
Yeah.
And all of these things are the things that need to come up and pass, or even gain some feedback. And I had one guy, he came I think they were monthly then, this was years ago, or maybe they were fortnightly. He came for a year, and all he said was his name, which was false, and pass.
No.
One whole year. And he chose, when he was ready, to start talking, and it took a year, and my God, did he gain respect, especially after the first few months. The initial few months, that was a bit confusing for a lot of people, but to hold your own and say pass. Then he joined a closed group, and a closed group is the same men for 6 months, and most of them just keep coming back for years because
is it
it's
once
a great.
A week? I don't know.
The open groups are about once a week, and they're online groups. So people, the last one I did, there was someone from Canada, someone from Australia, someone from Holland, mainly from the UK. They come from all over the place. People have flown in from, I don't know, Singapore, France, whatever, for their closed groups because it does them good. It really does them good.
And are they from all... Oh, sorry, that was me. Are they all from all walks? Don't look at me like that, James. I hit the microphone. What do you want me to do? Stand in the street, flagellate myself? It's an accident. Get over it. Right. Are they from all walks of life, or what's the deal?
Totally awful. I mean, I've had aristocracy. Not that they'd walk in and say, I'm Lord so-and-so or Baron so-and-so. And I've had... unemployed and lower class, upper class, and every class in between. I wouldn't really say it's totally international, but it's a good cross section. All ages, all sexualities, all different backgrounds. It's a total mishmash.
The guy who said nothing for 12 solid months, did the other people in the group feel, a bit unnerved, or did they feel on a sort of subliminal level they were being judged by this mysterious character who was silent?
I'd
silent
say
Bob. Sort of thing. Really? Yeah.
Both, and so much more. And that was valuable because whatever it was that they projected on him, they probably experienced in their families or in their fears or whatever it was. When he joined the closed group, then he really started talking. When he started talking, what he had to say was quite shocking in so many different ways.
And obviously I won't ask you what that is. Of course, I'm not that thick. But it was something of a traumatic nature. I don't know.
Traumatic background, the way he was living in the present, etc. But he basically needed to feel safe. And as soon as he was safe, then he was ready to
and
open
that took
up.
him understandably, that took him the full year.
Yeah,
until he
some
was ready.
people, they come the first time, they cannot wait. They use it as a confessional and everything's out and they feel better for it.
Yeah.
Some people take their time to open up. Some people will start on with surface level stuff and then they'll go deeper.
So give me a surface level example.
Surface level might be I can't sleep, or I've got problems with my relationship, or
It
someone.
doesn't sound so surface to me. That's bloody important.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
You've hit on two things. One, I can't sleep, and two, relationships. I mean, that's pretty vital stuff.
They're normal. Everyone talks about these things, and they're very important and they're very normal. But when people really get into the nitty-gritty, more often than not in the closed groups, they get into trauma. They get into what's really going on, or what has been going on, or what's been running their lives. And, you know, you could never imagine looking at someone and how together they are, what's going on behind the scenes. And what's wonderful is how the men are on the same side. And I'd say that's one big difference between the boys and the men. The men will be on the same side and collaborate and allow the female aspects of communication and listening and caring and nurture, where the boys will compete, they'll be scared, they'll humiliate, they'll survive, and it's like, how do I play this so I'm popular and up in the pecking order, etc., etc. And boys turn into men irrespective of their age. And, you know, the youngest I've had is 18, and, you know, men can't come until they're 18, and the oldest is 80-something. I mean, it's mainly...
That's extraordinary.
Totally.
But how does an 18... I'm just wondering, how does an 18-year-old... would that person feel very... Wow, this is a room full of grown... I'm not saying 18 isn't grown up, but you know what I mean. You are only 18, right? So, this is a room full of grown-ups. I'm a bit out of my depth here. Do you get that? Or do the rest of them think, why is this kid here? I don't want to hear about his... whatever his problems might be. Because in their head, maybe... they're not as big as their problems, but everything's relative. Yeah. So whatever the young guy's going through is equally important.
The funny thing is, the older guys generally say, man, I wish I had something like this when I was your age, and I'm jealous because you're setting yourself up for life. And some of the older guys, there was an 80-something-year-old quite recently, he was scared of the grown-ups. It's got nothing to do with age, and it's got everything to do with stage.
It's I wonder if people go back immediately to default setting, and by that, Kenny, I mean something like, this is a bit like school. Suddenly, I'm sitting around in a circle. Am I being judged? God, school was crap. I don't want to go through that again. Why am I here? There must be some people must think that.
I have
just me then. Okay. Thank you. Just let me drown here, Kenny. Why
You're bringing up stuff.
Who the hell booked this guy?
Comes up.
James, you booked him? He comes up dressed like this, and I get like a schmuck here.
You're pickling yourself, aren't you?
Well, no one can pickle themselves better than I can. That's why I set them up and I shoot myself down.
But, way beyond talking. Talking's one part of it, and getting to know who you are and getting to know who you no longer need to be and getting tools for life, etc., etc. That's all well and good. I'd say there's another part, and it's a really vital part that seems to be missing in modern-day Western society, especially in cities, and that's community. Community is a really big deal. A sense of not just belonging, but I can be me here. I can tell the truth here. I can change here. I could talk about pain, fear, medication. I can talk about being in love and how dizzy I feel. I can celebrate the goodness in life without thinking that other people are thinking I'm showing off or they'll upstage me. It's space to be true. It's really about getting real and bringing all of you to the party.
It's interesting you say about community. I mean, one of the things... If you could rewrite history, we can't, but if you could, you wouldn't have built the high-rises.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have built the high-rises because the moment you stop people popping in next door and chatting over the fence and all the stuff that, the old Les Dawson characters that you make, you laughed at from old sitcoms, and then you shove people straight up in a vertical line towards the sky where they don't know. You can't physically meet people.
Yeah.
I think that destroyed vast swathes. Look, I'm born and bred Londoner. Vast swathes of London community, that
Totally.
sense of community.
Totally. Though people can't rewrite history, I'd say there are two things that the men do. Is they get to understand their history and no longer survive it or recreate it. And that's huge, because usually whatever it is that happened in their lives, they will believe something about themselves. They will recreate it, and it would be Groundhog Day, where the history keeps repeating and repeating.
Why is that? Why so many people say, God, why did I do that again? I should have known. Whatever, like a relationship, it could be business, it could be anything. I knew it was rubbish the first time, and look, I'm in the same thing.
Yeah.
Why do people do that to themselves?
Because they know how. Isn't that outrageous? Not only do they know how, they know how to survive it. And control is a big issue. And I would say unconsciously, most men, most people that I've worked with, and maybe it's the people I attract to work with, I don't know, they will only allow what they know to survive to show up and reach a certain platform, and beyond that would be vulnerable, out of control, and again they might be humiliated, they might be too much at risk, they might die. So better to be in control and be a good survivor and deal with what they know how to deal with than be out of control and fly.
It's interesting. My dad, my late dad, many years ago in 2000, and he was a man of very few words to me anyway, apart from get out. But he always said, if I was worried about something, he goes, "Yeah, you're worried about it, Russell?" I went, "Yeah, I'm worried about it." And he went, "Well, what's the worst going to happen? They're going to take you out in the street and shoot you." I went, "Well, of course not." He says, "Well, shut up." that has been my attitude to life. What's the worst that's going to happen? Well, they're not going to shoot me. So, well, hopefully. So, that's why I don't. And it's interesting. Do you think a lot of people suffer from? And I'm asking particularly for myself, Howard, James, the whole team at Men's Radio Station. If you're scared of failure, what is it, the aspect of failure that you're scared of, number one? And part B to my question, Kenny, is, does it stop you from, as you said, flying or giving it a go?
Fear of failure. Do you know, as soon as you said that, I thought about myself. Shall I tell you mine very quickly?
Of course.
Mine wasn't so much a fear of failure. It was a fear of success and then failure and then not being able to crawl out of the hole and do it again. And the reason I had that pattern is because I'm from a refugee family and we lost everything and we had to start again. And I didn't want that cycle to continue. So one of the cycles, unconscious for a reasonable amount of my life, in my life was I'd do well in an industry and I would almost do very well, and then I'd change job. I'd feel safe and life was good, and then I'd be spooked and I'd move house. So I kept running. I had a ceiling and I wouldn't let it go beyond that ceiling because of my fear of success.
Isn't that interesting? Fear of success. That's so
people have,
interesting.
And people have. It's knowing your own belief systems, and not just the cycle, what keeps repeating, but one of the most important and interesting aspects is the personalities that keep repeating. So it's the same soap opera, just different players playing the same role, and that's what people very often repeat. And once they're aware of it, and they know why, and they know their belief systems, which is quite easily done, naming it can disempower it. But they may not be able to rewrite history, but they can unlearn their belief systems. I have.
Where were you a refugee? Where was the family refugees from?
Uganda.
Ah.
Yeah. So, and also
was that during the
Idi Amin stuff. But we were on the death list, so we were away from everyone else.
Was he a fashion critic as well? No, I'm just checking. Just
with all those medals and badges, I don't know.
Total maniac. Anyway, there we are.
Yeah.
Why, I'm sorry, it's got nothing to do with this, but I'm just incurably. Why were you on the death list? Am I allowed to ask?
Oh, my father was saving lives and doing good things.
Cheek. Oh,
so we got up there. And, it was, all of that. My father was left in Uganda. We didn't know whether we'd see him again. We ended up in refugee camp, so we were lucky to get out. And I ended up...
So how have you, from such a horrid beginning, much worse than most of us could ever imagine. And I had no idea about that, by the way. So how have you then managed to get, because that's an exemplary story. You've come from something which is like most people's worst nightmare. What would be your worst nightmare? Refugee camp. Can you think of much worse? Not really, right? And then where you are today. It's an that's a hell of a trajectory.
Well, I kind of guess so from the outside.
Well, it is.
From the inside, it's just my life. It was my experience. It left me with various mental health issues. People come and watch me speak, not because I'm interesting or overly smart or anything. It's because they want to see someone who used to twitch, who's not twitching anymore. So I
mean, literally twitch. You twitch.
Facial twitches and stuff. I'd twitch. I'd grunt. I'd pick at myself. I had OCD, Tourette's, trichomania, body dysmorphia.
Hang on, what's trichomania? I've no idea what that
pulling hair, pulling my hair, it's all kind of anxiety relieving, or it's control, avoidance of causing harm, and so it goes on. So I had, and they were mainly my dirty little secret. The only one that people could see was the twitching, for example. Yeah. So, and it was survival. I did very well, and that was the overflow. I needed to unlearn it. So I taught myself to unlearn it. And everything that I've learned, I've been able to pass on.
You see, that sounds, I'm going to say easy. I'm not going to use the word glib, but you'll understand what I'm saying, Kenny, if I say I taught myself to unlearn it. Those are serious issues that you've just been talking about. And it's like, and I taught myself to unlearn it. Boom! And with one bound, he was free.
But you know what?
How long did that take, for example?
Oh, God, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it did take years. Bits and I mean, to be frank, I have one issue left, and that is dyscalculia. I can't see numbers. Dyscalculia is numbers. Dyslexia was numbers. Right. Numbers, time, distance, weight, sequence. Terrible with computers. You press this, you read that, you press this, it goes there. So things like that, it's limiting. So that, and
you physically, when you look at it, it doesn't kind of read back to you, so to speak.
It doesn't really make sense. It's even, turn right, turn left, do this. I get lost with that. It's too much. It doesn't compute.
How did you find us today? Because this is not an easy place to find.
Thanks to the iPhone. All praise. I am that blue dot.
Okay. Now we were talking about earlier, and one of the themes today, and I know it's a theme that we're going to come back to time and time again because it's important and so prevalent, is depression.
Yeah.
Do a lot of people who come to your groups are there because they're depressed, or that's one of the things they're trying to combat, or what?
Some for sure, some quite worse. I remember one guy when I was running men's groups in London Bridge, at the end of the group he said, that was close because it's London Bridge, and I really didn't think I'd make it to the group. I'm really pleased I made it to the group, and he was on the verge. This is my first Christmas for a few years that I haven't been, because I see private clients as well, that I haven't been working with a suicidal, and it's just been bliss. It's heavy, heavy work. So, yeah, some of them are depressed. Some of them are low-level depression as normal throughout their lives and maybe generations in their families. Some of them don't really...
Can I ask you? I've got to ask. Can it be inherited? Is it a gene thing? Is it the makeup of whatever makes us who we are?
I'm not smart enough to know about genes. It's not my thing.
Well,
but
you know what I mean. Or is it just learnt experience? That's how my parents were. They were depressive, so therefore that's what I think is normal.
Normalities and behaviours in a family, in a household, will be seen as normal and passed on. Survival ways will be passed on. What is expressed and what's not expressed. Survival behaviours, and it could be alcohol. There are a lot of sons of alcoholics and stuff like that. All of these things can be passed on in some shape or form.
And now, if you knew the system we had to get the calls through, you'd be laughing. Talk about, what's the name of that invention? I can't remember the guy. Right. Okay. Hello. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. This is Dennis.
Oh, Dennis. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just keeping track of everything on social media, and I just listened to you earlier. You were talking about depression.
Yes, and we're with
I think
Kenny
it's
Mammarella-D'Cruz. Yeah, got it right. so would you like to ask Kenny something?
Oh yeah, I was actually following Kenny on social media, and I was just interested to know, like, what sort of men actually come to his practice, and what kind of problems do they actually share to him?
There are very, very few things that have not been... Do you know, to be frank, the one thing that people don't talk about in men's groups that they come to see me and discuss privately is if they're going to cause harm. Other than that, everything has been discussed in men's groups.
To cause harm to others or to cause harm to themselves?
Generally others rather than themselves.
Wow. And
that's something, the only thing, I'm quite shocked at how courageous men can be, even at their first group. And they spill the beans. They're dying to have a safe space to just name things. And once something's off their chests, they change. But it's a total cross-section. And it's not like men are on the spotlight when they say, this is me and this is, everyone else has their relationship or their version of that. So it's almost like the mouthpiece for the group. Everyone's on the same side in that way. So it's everything, really. Were you thinking of coming?
I would love to. I actually visited your website when you just mentioned your website earlier. And yeah, I'd love to join.
Wonderful. Do you know, some people, if they are scared of coming, then they might join an online group and even start some sort of a profile with a false name or whatever. So it's not about revealing yourself and being over. You don't need to throw yourself to the lions. It's at your own pace. It's totally respectful, and everything's welcome.
What happens if somebody, and I'm wondering if our caller Dennis would want to ask this as well, what happens if somebody breaks your 12 cardinal rule? I mean, they asked to leave on the spot, or somebody's getting aggressive or obnoxious?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
It's dealt with in a way. The group, I would say, is its own group. It belongs to everyone there, rather than it's my group and it's my ball and it wasn't a goal. It doesn't work that way.
I'm going home. Take my ball home.
So, for example, I'm thinking about one men's group where it took most of the men in the room to realise that one of the guys was drunk. And once it was named, once he was asked, then he's the one who got very defensive and very upset. And it wasn't like, you're drunk, you have to leave. It brought stuff up for people. People not feeling safe, people feeling that they need to take care of him, or why is he drunk, people wondering whether it's allowed, or bringing up alcoholic friends and family. And he decided that he needs to leave. And no one stopped him, and no one begged him to stay. No one said, yes, you should leave. So it's
did he come
community.
Back? Did he ever come back?
He came back 10 months later. And it wasn't even addressed because it didn't need to be addressed. And he'd done some work on himself. It's not like he wasn't welcome, but there's a reason for everything. And for me, it's about sitting with why and knowing what needs to be unlearned, or what has shaped someone that has to be undone to set them free. So it's almost like, where is the pause button down? Where's the pause button depressed, actually? Going back to that place safely, sitting with it, accepting it, and letting it pass. So many people need to avoid or survive their pain, where this is about going through it, not necessarily looking for trouble, but if something's up that needs to pass so a better life can be lived, then here's a place to do it.
How do you feel about that, Dennis? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that is absolutely fine. I've never been to that group in my life, so I think it would be interesting to be one in the future. And I absolutely love to go there.
Wonderful. Do you know what else? It's great fun. We can
Yeah,
be in
I bet it
the
is.
depths of despair with someone's story and someone revealing something. Next minute, we're on the floor laughing about something else. So you don't have to be glum. Same as life. Joy comes and goes, pain comes and goes, wind comes and goes.
Especially after Christmas. That's probably not what you meant, sorry. Just here for the light relief, folks. So Dennis, it's interesting because you've never done anything sort of a group before, and you're listening to Kenny and you're thinking, yeah, that sounds like that'd be pretty good for me.
Yeah, because what I do is I manage a mental health blog, so it's kind of it's also a group, a network on its own. But I've never been in face-to-face group myself, so I think it's kind of an interesting opportunity to connect with other people, connect with other men about about mental health issues.
And what's your blog called?
Sorry?
What's your blog called?
Oh, my blog is called Psych-Reg. You had on caller earlier, Fraser. He's actually a colleague of mine.
Will? Was that Will, presumably? Was that Will?
It's Fraser. You keep on calling him Will
I thought he said his name was Will.
Yeah, he's just too polite to correct you.
Oh, James is looking at me like, what the... what I thought... No, James is also, who's producing, thought, no, his name's Will. Fraser, I can only apologise.
He's still listening.
Stop mumbling, Fraser. Stop it.
Yeah.
Not too tricky. What's your name? Oh, next question. Passing on that one.
But we've got an open Facebook group, a closed Facebook group, and various other things, and it is amazing how people reveal their stories and support each other and compare notes and share ways of living better lives together, whether it's face-to-face in a room or online or even in written word, rather, whatever works for people. But a lot of men say to me, there is nothing like sitting in a room with other human beings.
Exactly.
Well, that's true, isn't it? It's
the old-fashioned way.
Dennis, I have a question for you, and it's particularly pertinent because Kenny's here, right? So you spend a lot of time online. Has that impacted on actual meeting real people, not on a screen, but actually meeting somebody face to face? Does that impact on you? Has that changed the way that you interact generally?
Yeah, because I'll tell you what. I started a blog, and soon I developed it into a brand, and that's actually what I do. I'm trying to create a platform for people to talk about mental health issues and well-being issues. And just more recently, I was able to organize a conference in Philippines out of my blog, and it was attended by 549 participants from other countries.
Wow, good on you. That's something.
Just last December, again, out of my own blog and Get Psych with Fraser, we were able to organize another mental health bloggers conference in London. So, well, what I'm trying to achieve is that from my blog, you could actually get to know other people. You could hear their mental health stories, and that creates an online conversation at the beginning, but soon it will venture into meeting other people in person.
Brilliant. It sounds like coming and hanging out at a men's group might be an interesting next step as an experience, because it sounds like your people are going from online to in the flesh. I've had quite a lot of that where people have come online first just to dip a toe in. And then they might take part in the community more online, and then suddenly it's ta-da, here I am, and it's like, oh my God, it's you. People can get to know other people so well online, and then suddenly it's like,
I get
oh
that
my
a lot
God,
on Facebook.
it's crazy, isn't it?
Because people think, oh, I really know you. You don't, actually. You know the version I'm putting up on Facebook, which I've always been very open about. I've never said that's me, really. But it's the version of the. I'm always very honest. It's the version I'm giving you. I'm giving you the potted, the edited highlights. But people think, "Oh, we really know you." Well, you don't. But it's lovely to meet. It's lovely to meet you. But people come up and they immediately think they've known you for years, and you just start chatting. You go, I've never met this person before. I don't know who they are. And very often my partner says, who the hell's that? And I go, I don't know. And because she thinks I've known them. I've never, probably the first time I've ever met them.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting, that intimacy you can sort of get online is a weird thing because it's not real. It's not a real thing.
Well, it kind of is, but it's in a different zone.
Yeah.
It's at a different frequency. So, yeah.
Dennis, how long did I'm just curious, you got 549 people rock up to your conference?
Yeah, because that was held in the Philippines. It was in partnership with the university.
Right. So how was it over a couple of days?
Sorry.
Was it over a couple of days, or how did you?
No, it was a 3-day event.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really
we're
impressive.
trying to have another one in New York in November this year.
You're a hotshot, aren't you?
He knows what he's doing.
No, not really. I'm just trying to, get to know other people who have the same interest and those people who are actually reading my blog.
Dennis, trust Kenny and I. If you can get a conference for 3 days with 549 people, you're a hotshot. Take the compliment. Take the compliment, man.
It was also Fraser was there. One of your
No, you mean Will.
Will,
I'm calling him Will. I don't even think his name is Fraser. The hell with that. From now on, he's known as Will.
Disorder.
And if he phones us back, I want to have him changed by deed poll. You tell your mate. Because I don't want to look stupid.
You know what?
I normally do.
Good on you for what you're sharing as well. That many people passing it on. That's an achievement. And for me, it is all about living it and passing it on. So good on you.
Bless you, Dennis. Anything else you'd like to ask Kenny while we've got him in the studio?
I'd just love to say that he has to keep on what he's doing. He's actually doing a fantastic job trying to create a platform for men. And because basically it's difficult to bottle up your emotion as a man. And because of what he's doing, he's giving men a chance to, connect and open up about the issues that they're struggling with, and that's an excellent advocacy.
Well, I echo that, and thank you so much for taking the time and trouble to call us. Thanks a lot, Dennis, and please call again.
Thank you. It's lovely to talk to you.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Have a rest of the nice day, it being Sunday and all. Unless you're listening on repeat, in which case, God knows what day it is. See you, Dennis. There we are.
Bye.
Bye. There we are. That was Dennis calling. So,
one thing before I forget is tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Tomorrow
yes.
is Blue Monday.
Do I get discount at Curry's? I just assume that's what
You want a discount
No,
at
I don't.
Curry's?
I just assume... Well, I don't know. Hey, it's Black Friday.
I see what you're saying.
What I meant.
I wouldn't be surprised if Blue Monday was invented by someone trying to sell something.
Well, it sounds like it should be. Hey, it's Blue Monday, everybody. Look for the blue stickers.
I looked it up.
What does it really mean?
It's something to do with... It's one of the darkest days for men. With depression and probably, I haven't checked out the figures, but suicide and apparently with post-Christmas blues, plus the darkness, plus the credit card bills, plus the beginning of the year, what's wrong with me, where is my life going, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So it's pinpointed as one of the downer days of the year.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? But you see, I've taken, joking aside, I've taken steps. One, and I know the rest of the team are, we were so psyched about launching Men's Radio Station that was like pulling me through Christmas. I was really like, I can't wait. I mean, normally you think, oh, God, it's January. Crap. But, I was like thinking, January the 6th, we're launching the station. I was like really excited about that. And the other thing is I've always tried, and you've just touched on it as a sort of litmus test, is that I don't want those big bills. I know what I've spent.
Yeah.
It's gone. Once it's gone, it's gone. I don't use credit. I don't use credit cards. No, I don't use cash either. I don't use credit cards. It comes straight off. So I don't have that, oh my God, when you open the envelope thing.
But that's one of the ways that people fill the hole, is I'll spend to feel better.
Oh, I do that.
Yeah.
I do that. I do it on stupid stuff. I do it on pens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't do it on clothes. If you make one crack, Kenny, you're leaving, all right? You're leaving. And you can shut up, James. Just sitting there. Blooming Greek chorus. just keep quiet. But I do it on stupid stuff. Like I'll go out and spend stupid money on a pen. You can go to Tesco and buy a pen for like 6p. But no, I mean, because it gives me pleasure.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
And for some people, it's an avoidance of pain. It's a lift up. It was quite a big deal when my wife said, you know, when people eat, it's not the eating that's the addiction. It could be the avoidance of feeling that's the addiction. Because if your body is digesting food, then it's not feeling. It's one or the other.
Sit and talk to people at the I tell you what's happened to me in later life. I can't watch people eat. There was a film about it, wasn't it? The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, which I thought was just was crazy. And now I have a real problem watching people eat. It makes me. I just don't like it.
In my OCD days, it was terrible. I was so paranoid. If anyone coughed or sneezed in the room, end of meal.
Oh, what, you'd leave?
Totally. I couldn't eat. I was so discreet. I see. If I was a horrible child at times, if I suspected anyone was going to sneeze, I would shout, hands, in such an aggressive way.
No, I'm with you. I don't think Kenny, I'm sorry. Either I'm really not well, but I think you're 100%. So I used to bust and tube all the time. I go, have you got a handkerchief? How tricky is it to get some Kleenex? You know, God's sake. I mean, my partner wears a mask, and then she robs banks. No, she's out. She wears often like the Japanese do.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm with you on this. I don't think that's so weird. James doesn't think it's so weird, but then I don't know. He's wearing a mask now. I don't know what that says. So it's really interesting. So you got yourself. Yes, I didn't think that was so OCD.
It depends because I had issues with food. I mean, I had guilt of eating food when I was a child. Even though I was in Africa, I remember watching starving people in Africa, starving children. And I didn't eat all my food. And I instructed the staff to wrap it and send it to the starving kids. And I was devastated when I realised that not only were they not sending my leftovers to the starving kids, but I could have eaten it.
Of the two, which is the worst? Well, it's interesting. That could be a debate for some time.
And then the other extreme,
the moral maze here on Men's Radio Station.
The other extreme of guilt of eating is when we came to this country. From being comfortably off in Uganda, we had nothing. We lost everything, and we didn't know how to cook, clean it, take care of ourselves. And I remember my suicidal thoughts that if I was dead, then they'd have one less mouth to feed, and maybe they'd have a better chance.
So it's depressive, but it's also altruistic. So that's really complicated, though. Isn't
I've got a messy mind.
What is fascinating? I often say I get criticised. I say, well, you don't want to be inside my head. It's like a firework display. Not that it's attractive. It just goes in a million directions simultaneously. Not all of them particularly constructive. Anyway, listen, I cannot thank you enough. So tell everybody how they can get hold of you and.
So mensgroups.co.uk for the men's groups, and you can download the ground rules, check-in round, how-tos and everything else, and find out where the men's groups are. And for the private work and everything else that I'm doing, it's themanwhisperer.co.uk.
That has got to be like the greatest handle, isn't it? Themanwhisperer.co.uk. You can't. Thank you so much, Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz.
Yay!
It's got to be said like that. It's got to be said like you're going to come on with Santana or something. I'm just singing. This is like some huge concert. Kenny, I'm going to shake your hand in a formal manner. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I have loved every second of that. Would you like to come? It sounds like a game show host. Would you come back?
I'd love to come.
Oh, then your book, fantastic. James has given you the double thumbs up, which
means
that's terrific. Thank you so much. Well,